What if I told you that Lars of the Stars is going to take place far into the future? The synopsis for the upcoming spinoff mentions Lars and the Off-Colors evading authorities, but like, what authorities? Homeworld dismantled their empire, and co-creator Ian J.Q's been adamant that there's no intelligent life out in the galaxy aside from humans and gems. Which means that the main threats are actually coming from Homeworld again. And I believe it's because this show will actually be set during Era 4, with a new ruler who doesn't have all of Gemkind's best interests at heart, only those who used to be elites. I am on a mission to uncover the story of this new installment in the Steven Universe franchise before they can even finish writing the first season. And you can consider this theory the start of a two-parter, as I try to solve who will be the villains in the series and what they're really after. Let's dive in. So why would Homeworld once again become a threat to the galaxy? Steven achieved peace and brought the Diamond's reign of tyranny to an end, but as it turns out, the future wasn't entirely in his hands after all. The events of Steven Universe the movie and Steven Universe Future gave us a glimpse into the start of Era 3 and Homeworld's transition into a democracy, holding an election that seems to have the populace split between two candidates, Blue Zircon and Yellow Zircon. Yes, she's yellow and not green, shut up.
I can't believe half of Homeworld's gonna vote for that Diamond Stooge Zircon. Now Zircon, that's a face you can trust.
Going off the words of this amethyst, we can infer that Blue Zircon's campaign is likely driven by the promise of change, while Yellow Zircon's campaign is likely falling back on the good old days of Homeworld, aka the age of the Diamond's empire. Just about the Diamonds calling the shots. With this in mind, I have a feeling that Lars of the Stars is going to mirror real life a little bit, where yes, Blue Zircon was victorious and led Homeworld through Era 3, which continued to be the most progressive era of Gem society. But unfortunately, the pendulum has swung in the other direction, and instead of getting re-elected, Blue Zircon lost to Yellow Zircon in the following election. You may be thinking, but doesn't everyone love Era 3 with all gems being on equal footing and having the freedom to do whatever they want? And the answer is a resounding no. While a lot of gems were at the bottom of Homeworld's caste system were desperate for change and thus the ones likely to vote for Blue Zircon, a handful of episodes in Future showed us that quite a bit of gems aren't vibing with Era 3. In fact, they hate it. And most of them weren't even high-ranking gems, they just benefited from their place in the pecking order. Holly Blue Agate is constantly stressed from a total lack of order on the zoo cruise. It's unclear if someone like the Diamonds ordered her to remain stationed at the zoo and serve the Zoomans as a way to atone for keeping them in captivity, or if she stays here because she's completely aimless in life. But I do believe that aside from the go-with-the-flow nature of things, Holly's struggling with the fact that she can no longer have authority over the corpses. She can't bust out the whip or use her usual fear tactics, and she no longer has a superior to seek praise from. Aquamarine and Eyeball were shown to seethe over Steven's existence, as even though Aquamarine was already assumed to be a high-ranking gem, these two were celebrated on Homeworld after turning Steven in and testifying against him in court. Although we never got to see their elevated status on Homeworld, we can assume they did receive some perks beyond a boost in popularity, although I doubt Eyeball got that pearl she was hoping for back in Bubbled. But now their status means nothing. No one even respects their actions anymore since Steven turned out to be a diamond. They faded into complete irrelevancy, and that goes for all of the elite gems. Any luxuries they had vanished overnight, and I can't imagine that most of them got over that lifestyle. I mean, look at Emerald. She loves her ships, but with Homeworld's armies disbanded, we can assume she no longer has access to the vast catalog of vehicles she was once supplied with. Unleash the Light, a canon video game set in between Change Your Mind and the movie, introduced us to Pyrope and Demantoid, two Garnets who weren't ready to relinquish their status, and isolated their colonies from the rest of Homeworld in a desperate attempt to hold on to Era 2. It goes to show that if elite gems have the chance to act in their own self-interest, they'll take it. For a lot of them, it was never about the diamonds. It was about relishing in the things that other gems were forced to build for them. The gems who benefited from the Diamond Authority have little reason to be content with Era 3, and I think that's something Steven never really considered, as shown with Mean Lapis and Nice Lapis in Why So Blue. He couldn't fathom that a Lapis could genuinely enjoy terraforming in the same way a court soldier could love a high-stakes battle. Steven has generally struggled with the process that plenty of gems like having power over others, and while I'm sure some elite gems willingly turned over a new leaf and thrived in Era 3, a lot of them were repulsed by having to share spaces with gems that they believed believed to be inferior, gems who no longer have to cater to their every need, on top of being exposed to more cross-gem fusions and other things that were frowned upon in previous eras. Unfortunately for those former elites though, all they could do is vote for yellow zircon. But again, I'm thinking blue zircon won this first election. As of Homeworld bound, the race sounded neck and neck. Yet, circling back to why so blue, we've seen that some gems might be partial to the old ways just because they never tried anything different. So, just like how the crystal gems convinced Nice Lapis to give little homeschool a shot after helping her realize she can find fulfillment by expressing herself in ways other than terraforming, gems who are inclined to vote for yellow zircon can be swayed to try something new and vote blue. But things aren't all sunshine and rainbows after blue zircon wins. Era 3 of Homeworld has always been destined to be a little messy because they're transitioning from having their society ruled by matriarchs who everyone was programmed to love and obey, to having one appointed leader and presumably a government that's structured like our own, especially since this was likely a concept that was introduced to them by Steven and Connie. Resentful gems will blame blue zircon for anything that goes wrong during our time in office, and I'm sure they'll keep tabs on any incidents pertaining to cross-gem fusions and former low-class gems fighting with former elites. Incidents that can be used as an argument for why Homeworld needs to return to tradition. This all brings us to Lars of the Stars and the period I believe it'll be set in, Era 4. Now I'm gonna make two assumptions. The first is that eras on Homeworld are going to be akin to presidencies and terms in America, since each era of Homeworld was previously determined by the numbers of diamonds in charge. Era 2 starting after the Gem War with the loss of Pink Diamond, and Era 3 starting with Steven returning to Homeworld as a diamond. If blue zircon gets re-elected, it'll remain as Era 3, but if she loses, her opponent's time in office will usher in Era 4. And I'd wager Era 3 will have been just messy enough for bitter gems to feel vindicated and push for a return to normalcy, or at least their sense of normalcy, setting the stage for yellow zircon to run again and win the next election, promising to restore Homeworld to its former glory, a new era that harkens back to an old one. Which brings me to my second assumption. If this series is set in Era 4, then we're looking at a massive time skip, something that makes sense in universe while also leading into the premise of the show. We have no way of knowing how long a term would be on Homeworld, but I imagine it'd be longer than the 4 years an American president is given. Gems don't age and have no set expiration date, so 4 years is nothing to them. But with this being their first shot at this sort of thing, I can't even see Era 3 lasting decades. And assuming this show is gonna be like Fiona and Cake, where it's grown up with the audience, I think it'd be a little freaky if Steven and Connie dropped in as old-ass senior citizens or something, when those watching are gonna be in their like 20s and 30s. So keeping this in mind, I think Era 3 will last around 10 years or so, with the show picking up a little bit into Era 4, so we can see the effects of Yellow Zircon's time in office. Opening the show up in the future will drive home Lars being an eternal teenager, as he'd look no different from when we last saw him in the future, while characters like Steven and Connie would be well into their 20s. Setting this in Era 4 will also explain why Lars and his crew have to suddenly evade authorities. Yellow Zircon has made the gems who serve her a threat again. I imagine a return to tradition on Homeworld means that armies are being reformed, new planets are being sought out to colonize, the caste system has been reinstated, and so on. The universe won't be free for Lars and the Off-Colors to travel, as many planets and checkpoints will be controlled by Yellow Zircon's forces. And this won't just affect gems on Homeworld. I could totally see the gems who move to Earth being forbidden from entering their motherland and other gem-controlled planets as punishment for betraying them. If they wish to return home, they have to renounce their new way of life and conform to the new rules in place. Speaking of rules, because we have fusions like Bluebird who oppose Era 3, despite it granting their freedom to exist, I can see cross-gem fusions being gay-kept to gems of higher status through the new rules, arguing that cross-gem fusions need to have a compelling reason to exist. And Bluebird will conveniently fit the bill. Homeworld is falling into old habits and is worse than ever. And there's nothing Steven can do about it because this time, a majority of Homeworld voted for all of this. And if they plan to simply leave Earth alone, it'll look like Steven sticking his nose into business that he was previously ready to keep his hands off of. And I imagine his status as a diamond would only complicate things as they're no longer supposed to have power. And this isn't like season 1 where there were just a handful of gems living on Earth that the diamonds were itching to exact revenge on. There's now an entire population of gems coexisting with humans on the planet, and the crystal gems wouldn't want to jeopardize their safety for something that's happening far out in space. That's not to say they won't be involved whatsoever. I imagine they'll be making plenty of moves behind closed doors, but it'll really be up to Lars and the Off-Colors to fight this corrupt power-up system head-on. I also love the idea of someone like Yellow Zircon being the introductory villain for the series, as it'd be a very different dynamic from the Diamonds. They were these all-powerful titans who could only be persuaded to change their wicked ways. Yellow Zircon is tiny and vulnerable, but will possess a scary level of influence that can turn gems against her adversaries and do the dirty work for her. It's a nice change of pace. I doubt she'd be the main villain, as Sugar and Jones-Quartey wouldn't pass on the chance to design a new villain, but I definitely think Yellow Zircon could be used to get the ball rolling. That said, I don't think that she'd be putting these laws in place without other gems whispering into her ear. Gems who are not only trying to reclaim their status, but protect their secrets from getting out into the world. However, that's a theory for another time, though I'm working on so many videos that I can't guarantee it'll be the next one. So make sure to subscribe with notifications on so you're locked in with all of our uploads. As always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. When do you think Lars of the Stars will take place and who will be leading Homeworld? Let me know in the comments down below and keep the conversation going over on Twitter and Instagram at AwestruckVox and at Roundtable Vids. Shout out to Art with Coda for another amazing thumbnail. Be sure to give him a follow on Insta, and if you enjoyed this video, throw it a like. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace!
What we do here is go back.
Need something to throw on while you draw, study, or sleep? Roundtable Rewind's got you covered. So why not take a stroll down memory lane and subscribe?
No one can tell me what to do.
See you there.